Okay, hello everybody, and welcome. Thank you for joining us. It's nice to see everybody. I'm assuming that Dr. Tabaka will be with us in a minute. There she is, I think. Before we get started, I want to just talk about a few things. This will be, after the interview, we will have an opportunity, we'll give everyone an opportunity to ask questions. And for the interest, in the interest of keeping the interview going, we're keeping the cameras off and everyone's muted, but you'll be able to unmute yourself when your time comes to speak. And if you'd like to ask questions, there'll be plenty of an opportunity for people to do that. If you want to see any more interviews like this and other interactive classes and in-depth Torah knowledge, from Talmud to Hasidus to cooking, all kinds of programs we're having, please subscribe to our community newsletter. There's a link in the description and also in the chat, and you can subscribe, and please join us for that. We have lots of very interesting, if I may say so myself, content coming up, including lots of other interviews like this. We're planning an intensive Hasidus and intensive Talmud class series, and we'll talk more about that. You can join us for that. If you're on Facebook Live or on Facebook, I guess now there's nobody here on Facebook, but because we couldn't, I'm sorry that we couldn't actually get into Facebook. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. I think they're a little bit overwhelmed, but if you are on Facebook, please like the Chabad of Greater South Bay page. And just one more thing before we get started. As I've said many, many times, right now, our sages have taught in situations of illness, God forbid, or plagues, it's important to give tzedakah. And just as we need to wash our hands several times a day, it's a good idea to give tzedakah several times a day. And we try to start every class with tzedakah. I'm going to ask you to join me in giving some tzedakah, a coin or two. It doesn't have to be a lot. Just the idea of giving the tzedakah, and then you can decide later where it should go to. That's secondary. The idea is the mitzvah to do it again and again, to give tzedakah, and that helps every situation. Okay, I want to welcome Dr. Esther Tiferes Tabaka. Welcome, and thank you for joining us. We have to unmute her. There you go.
For the opportunity.
All right. So I have a lot of questions I want to ask you, but let's start from the very beginning. If you can tell us where you're from, first of all.
I'm from Wuhan, the epicenter of the coronavirus outbreak.
So tell me about your family. What was it like to grow up there? Tell me about your family, your parents.
My mother is a Chinese opera singer. My father works for the government and that later years. And before that, that's complicated. He was under political abuse and there's a lot of things. I don't know where to begin. But in the end, he works for the government. He plays instruments. And my mother and my father often team up together. My mother would sing, my father would play the instrument for her. They have won numerous prizes of performance, Chinese opera performance. I have a brother, and who is a younger brother, who is a businessman. He does business between China and the US, going back and forth.
Okay, very good. Tell me about your father has some kind of some medical expertise. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I was personally a beneficiary of that, in addition to your help, but your father's help. Tell me a little bit about his medical background.
So my father is a 50+ years experienced Chinese medicine doctor. Is a family line practice. So although he has a job as working for the government, but he's also a doctor. The reason I practice acupuncture and Chinese medicine it was because my father taught me. He taught me to study, and it was a family call. So his main expertise is to treat pain, dealing with the pain, any sort of pain, especially spine-related pain. So I learned from him regarding that area, and also learned how to use herbs and how to do body manipulation, but not massage or chiropractic type of work. It's very different type of work. And also, I also do hypnosis. These are areas that my father wasn't able to do. So I kind of developed what he knew, and on top of what he taught me, I practice a lot more.
So going back to his own expertise, I just want to put in here that I had an injury, I had a foot injury, and it wasn't really healing. It was pretty bad and it was painful. And your father came, he was visiting at the time, and he checked out my foot and he said, well, it has to heal a little bit before he can do what he needs to do. And then he came in one day, he says he's ready, and he had me hang on to something, and he just pulled and pushed. I don't know what he did, and something popped, and after that it just started healing. So I recognize that his incredible skill in doing something like that. There must have been some little bone, I think he said, was out of place, and he put it back into place.
Yeah, he first made a room, then he put your the dislocated bone back into the right place. That's what he did.
Right.
Yeah.
Tell me some of the things that you and your family did growing up. What was like when you were a girl? What was it like growing up in Wuhan, being a child? What was the family like? Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, because my father's father, my grandfather, he was accused by the Chinese government as the U.S. spy. So he was murdered. So my whole family was under political abuse. So my childhood wasn't that pretty. Okay, so I was always isolated by other kids. They kind of love me, hate me kind of a relationship because of my political background. At the same time, I was doing the best at school, all the way from elementary school to higher education I've been. So they kind of love me, hate me at the same time. So that's one.
Can I ask you how old were you alive when your grandfather was killed?
Oh, my grandfather was killed when my father was a child.
I see.
Yeah, my grandmother raised 8 kids alone, basically. They murdered both my grandfather from my father's and the mother's side. My mother's father was a classmate of Zheng, which is the president of Taiwan, the first president of Taiwan. So of course he was murdered as well. So both my grandmothers raised kids alone. Yeah.
Wow. So growing up, you went to a regular Chinese school, I guess, and you had difficulty with your friends and challenges.
When I was young, I had difficulties with my friends. Yes, until I was in middle school, late middle school. Things got better because the second president changed the policy, and that's when the Chinese as a nation started growing, opened the doors to the other countries, and the economy started blooming. It's all from that time on, and also is from that time on I started flourish in terms of my life also. So when I was 11, I published my first poems on newspapers, and from that time on, I started publish articles and my audio pieces on the radio and all of that. And later led me to TV career.
Wow.
Yeah.
I just want to ask a little bit more about before you got to that point. Did you feel like how did it feel? It sounds like you felt like a little bit like an outcast. How did it feel? Was it difficult to walk through the streets? Was it, were you able to play in the parks? Were you able to be like any other kid, or was it really different in terms of your personal life? How badly was that affected by all this?
I would say I have no childhood. Really, there was no playmate. Most of the time after school, I was with my brother. I'll take care of my brother. My parents are too busy making a living, and under such a difficult condition, right? They have to work hard during the day. At night, they would be on the stage, not to perform, but to be abused. Like peasants and people will gather together, and they will put a paper hat on top of my father's head, and spit on him sometimes, and they throw bottles on him and throw things on him. And it was really difficult.
You would witness that?
I witnessed that. I was young. And older days, it was not as bad, but there was still no friends and anything. It's just at school when we during recess, we would play something like rubber bands and things like that. I was always the best, so everybody wanted to team up with me. But that's about it. After school, nobody was really hanging out with me. So I spent most of my time. I went to the library. I just read. I read a lot of books, and which is why it gave me very good, solid foundation. Later, when I became a reporter, and I was able to write like book-long articles.
Well, I'm gonna talk about your time reporting in a few minutes, but I just wanted to ask you first did you have any knowledge of Judaism when you were a kid? Did you know what it was as a child?
No, not at all. The only thing we knew is whenever Chinese talk about the Jews, they always say, "Oh, Jews, they're very smart. They're good with money." That's all we know. And like one big statement under this umbrella, nothing else.
So you never met a Jew or never studied any Torah or anything like that, any Jewish history?
No, never.
Can you?
And as a matter of fact, in China, it was not allowed to have any religious belief other than the Communist Party. So it's considered a sin. I don't know, probably the same as in Russia, right? They can actually jail you when I was very young. And toward the end of the 1980s, things got better. So as long as you don't really do anything openly against the Chinese government, they will just close one eye, just let you go. Right? So from that time on, like Buddhism and Taoism and Confucianism, like they started getting up a little bit.
But when you were a kid, there was no religion at all, right? It was just forbidden to have any
religion. Yeah, people, if they believe in anything, they would have to hide. Yeah. They secretly doing something discreetly at home or something.
Did you have a concept of God, of creator, of God? None of
No, not at all. And if anything, just know about the Buddhism, Buddha. Yeah, but not much about it in the beginning. Is later actually, in my late 20s, I started getting involved with Buddhism because I was looking for God. I just didn't know what I should be looking for. So I got involved with religion. I became very religious actually. Because in China, if you're looking for something, you're gonna end up in Buddhism because that's part of the culture, part of religion, part of culture. So I wanted it so much, I started reading the books that monks actually reading in the temples. So which is very rare for any young lady. So I read a lot. That's why if the monks come talk to me, I might know better than I might know more than them. But most of them, I would say. Yeah. So
let's step back for a minute and talk a little bit about your TV career. Tell me, how did you become a TV host? How did that work? And talk a little bit about your career on TV.
Okay. First of all, because my father is a Chinese doctor, but he was under abuse, so he did not really want me to go into any other field like performance and as an actress or actor, even though I was very talented in singing and maybe acting. But he sent me to Western medical school. So at 19 years old, I graduated from Wuhan University. It's a very famous university in China, Wuhan University Medical School. And as a registered nurse at 19 years old, I graduated. But I didn't really like Western medicine. To me, there was no challenge because it was all about memorizing. There was no individualized thinking, analyzing. So I didn't really like it, but I performed well at school, so the school asked me to stay. So I worked at the school for 4 years, but in the meantime, a year after I started working, I won the first prize of live TV show host contest. So I became a part-time TV show host for some particular entertainment TV show. And then 3 years later, they asked me to join them. So I became a full-time job.
I ask you, that show that you won, the prize that you won, was that some kind of like talent show or some kind of, it wasn't a professional, you didn't go on as a professional.
It was a competition for selecting the best TV show host. So because it was voted by the audience, that's why I was able to pop out. If it was any other type of contest, I would have drawn into, you know, communism kind of relationship, people who had, let's say, governor's daughter or the mayor's son. It wouldn't be me. So because it was the first time the audience vote for this, and so I was able, thank God, God created this opportunity for me, and I took it, and I won the first prize.
Very nice. So as you moved into TV and you became more and more involved, can you tell me a little bit about your work on TV? What did you do? What was your...
So in the beginning, I wanted just first won the prize, and I was just one of the very popular entertainment TV show hosts for several years. But 3 years later, I worked full-time for the TV station, and I was a national first-class news broadcaster on TV. And then after that, I became an entertainment TV show, like talk show host for several years for different shows throughout my TV career. But each show that I was host for became very popular. And once it became popular, it would switch to different people, like communism, politics kicked in, right?
How popular did it stay after you left?
When the show is popular, they just keep going at the model I created. So, like for example, like a bingo show of the U.S. Then in the end, I said no more of this. Like I was tired and sick of it. So I created a investigative show. So this one is not just about how you look, it's also your brain. So that one, no one could take it from me. So that show had become very, very popular. I put people in jail through my show, and I've made people being fined with millions of yuan, which is like a huge amount of money for that time. And I was loved and hated by audience. People who were in jail, of course, are gonna hate me, but most audience, they love me. And I was also many times, my life was in danger because of the investigative show. And then after that, 2 years before I came to the United States, I became a producer for 3 departments of the TV station: entertainment department, sport department, and the news department.
Can I elaborate a little? Can I ask you to elaborate a little bit more on what it means to be an investigative reporter in China? So, are you free to ask any questions you want? Can you do any investigations you want? With a communist government, would they allow you to just, you know, challenge anybody, or were you?
By the time I won the contest, we had a pretty much good freedom of speech to some degree. It's basically, if you don't do anything openly against the government, you're okay. For example, Wuhan is called the second line of the city in China. The first one is like Beijing, Shanghai, right? So Wuhan is like second line. It's a big city. The Wuhan is like 10 times bigger than New York. That's just giving an idea, the size and the population. Okay, so when I went to the third line of city in Hubei is the province. Wuhan is the capital of Hubei. I went to the third line of city. So there was incident. There was some performance from Russia Okay, it was not allowed during that time, but somehow they got to perform, and it's in the stadium, like with a big crowd. So I took my cameraman and we went together, took bus. Okay, so in 24 hours, I got to the bottom of it, and I found out who are responsible for it. The people who are in charge of educational department, who are in charge of entertainment, who are in charge of this and that. Everybody was guilty. Okay, so all the way I went to the mayor. So if I had made the mayor also become responsible for this, I think I might have not been able to get out of that alive, get that city. So I spared the mayor, but everyone else was fired by the government. That's just one example. So we do have that freedom, but to what degree? That's the key. And also, I put one person who was in the real estate business. Okay, but he took a lot of money, buyer's money, but he could not finish the work, building the building, and he gave the living unit to the buyers. So, and he was the one who said, "Oh, I did not take the money, and this one's responsible, that one's responsible." In Chinese, there's a saying, "The thief is calling for thief." Like calling his thief, like he himself was thief. So because of me, he was fined millions of yuan. And so that was able to be aired. But in the meantime, of course, I found people who were involved, like policemen, people who are in the tax department. A lot of people are responsible too. They all got some money. Like it's very corrupted. But I could not really expose that. Mm-hmm. So that person was in jail. The others are still doing whatever.
There's a limit to how far you could go.
Right.
How did it feel to reach that level of fame, I guess, of success after your childhood? I mean, how did it feel to achieve that? How did you feel that?
I would say I was well respected and well known. Wherever I go, a lot of people, let's say I go to the restaurant. Most of the time, I probably don't need to pay. You would be paid. They would just waive my payment, right? I go on the street, people will ask me to sign my names, like things like that. Like you have all this glory and applause and the flowers and all of that. However, I felt lonely. When I go home, when I went back home, I'm the same person. I was the same person as everyone else. I had the same physical needs, right? I need to eat. I need a family. I need friends. But in Chinese, we would say 人在高处不胜寒, means if once you reach a certain height, it's cold. It's lonely. Loneliness give you that coldness. So I know something was missing in my life. I was pursuing that for the longest time until I found Judaism. Then I was satisfied.
So let's talk a little bit about how you got there. How Judaism started playing a part in your life. How did you find Judaism? Talk about your journey, how you came from that position in Wuhan to, or whatever the place was called, to the United States. Well, how did that happen?
So in year 2000, March 2000, I came to the United States to attend an international conference in Duke University in North Carolina. Okay, the topic was on freedom of the press. Go figure, right? So I was selected to represent China, the whole China, to attend that conference. But I didn't speak English then. I know a little bit of English, like very simple ones, but it wasn't good enough to nearly understand anything. So the school had to hire a translator for me. I was only 2 out of all journalists, came from all over the country, who did not speak English. So I felt embarrassed for Chinese, not just for myself, because I represent China. So I decided to give myself 6 months to improve my English in the US. So I told the school, could I attend the next program? He said, no, this is a one-time thing. So, but I was determined to do so, to improve my English. And in the meantime, I thought, I'm staying here 6 months. I'm going to watch TV every day. When I go back to China, I'm going to develop a new TV show. And this time it's so going to be mind-blowing. No one can ever take it away from me again. So that was my thinking. So that led to the second program, which the topic was on freedom of religions. The reason I had is all because of Hashem. I didn't pick this on purpose. And freedom of the speech, the visa I had was a special type of visa is called J1. It's exchange scholar visa. In order to prolong your visa, there's a limitation on this type of visa. I could not change it to any other type but stay within J1, which means the topic has to be somewhat similar, right? So freedom of the speech led to freedom of religions. So that's why I had various opportunities to talk to priests, talk to ministers, and all these religious people in different religion. Anyways, to make it short, during this time, I met a person who was the minister of a Christian, I almost said sure, Christian temple. He had an institute, a Christian institute, and he was a friend of mine. I don't want to say the name because it involves people's privacy, but a very big shot in China. So this priest received me very, very well, and we had an overnight talk. And he was talking about the Christian, I was talking about the Buddhism. So he thought, a young lady and supposed to be famous in China, and knew so much about the Buddhism. And he said, but you are believing the wrong God. You are such a spiritual person. God is calling you. You should come home. This is your home. You should convert to Christianity. So he was very convincing because he's a very respected scholar in his field. Supposedly he knows a lot about their version of Bible. So while I was almost convinced, I thought changing religion is not a light matter, right? So I need to know what I'm signing up for if I were to convert. So I said, if your God is really that powerful as you told me, then he should guide me. So what I'm going to do, almost at dawn, I said, I'm going to take a shower before I'm going to pray to whatever this superpower is. And I believe it's only one God. That's for sure. Okay. Maybe it's called different names in different religion, but I believe the power is only one. So I'm going to pray to this God, whatever you call it, after I take a shower because I need to respect the God. And then he's going to guide me. He said, fair enough. Here is the book. Right? Why don't you read this book, which is their version of a Bible that contains the Old Testament and the New Testament together. So that's what I did. I took a shower. I opened that book he gave me. And this is what he said. I don't remember exactly the wording, but this is what it roughly said. So you came from the East and you bowed down to the idols. So from now on, I will not listen to a prayer and I would not care for your sorrow. Something like that. I was shocked because at that time I was bowing down. I came from the East, obviously, and I was bowing down every day, like putting my whole body on the floor every night. I was shocked that this God has something to it. It's talking to me directly. He told me I came from the East and they blamed me. I shouldn't bow down because I was believing the wrong God. So, but at that time I didn't know Christian, they also have an idol, right? The cross, whatever. And their God might not be the real one, but at least it point out to me and what I believed was wrong God. And of course, this was in the Old Testament. Even though I just randomly opened the page, was in the Old Testament. So I told him, I said, it sounds like this is something real. However, I need to read the whole book. I want to see what is going on. So when I finished the whole book, I went back to the priest. I had so many questions. I brought up the questions, and he couldn't give me satisfying answer. And questions such as, why do you say Yashka is son of God? What's the proof of it, right? If he's son of God, well, he got himself, and how could he be killed by human? And if he couldn't kill by human, why would we believe him? Why wouldn't I just believe anyone else? Like he just same as us. And so the main question was, who could prove to me that he was son of God? So he said, oh, because in the Old Testament, one of the chapters saying he's son of God. Okay. So I said, which chapter? He said, go read, you'll find out. I read the whole book again the second time. I couldn't find anything, but one chapter says a virgin girl will give birth to a boy, but the boy was not his name. Okay, it was a prophet's name, Emmanuel, right? So it was not his name. And I brought this up to him again. He said, oh, that's him. But where does it say it's him? He said, no, believe me, that's him. I said, no, I don't believe, just believe that what you are telling me. You need to give me a source. And he couldn't. So then I went on, I said, didn't you say God is the wisest and he would never make any mistake, right? He said, yeah. So why? What is the Old Testament? He said, oh, the Old Testament is called the mother of all religions. I said, so you believe in the Old Testament? He said, yes. And all other religions also believe in the Old Testament? He said, yes. It's called the mother of all other religions. Something been deleted or added later on and to become a new religion. So to me, if there's God, okay, the best chance would be the one that is oldest. No one have changed it, right? So if the Old Testament is called the mother of all religions, recognized by all, and God is infinite. His wisdom is no end to it. He knows from the beginning till the end. Why then he would give us one book, says, hey, this is my commandment, which you do so and so, and don't do so and so. And later on, 1,000 years later, hey, I made a mistake. Don't do that one, do the new one. Why? Because it's too hard for you, or because it's too difficult, or because it's impossible, whatever it is. And then he would be no different between you and me. When I told him that, he said, no. He gave me different reasons, because Yashka, mother is human, father is God, so that his blood was able to cover all the sinners, whatever. So, but wait a second. In the beginning of the New Testament, it shows, it's really hard, showed his family tree as he was descendant of King David. But try to make that link. So I asked the priest, I said, if he was son of God, how could he become descendant of King David? He was shocked. He couldn't give me the answer at all. And it can only be one of the two, cannot be both. So in their theory, they're saying he's descendant of King David. He's Messiah. He's going to be Messiah. And then he's God himself, and he's son of God. All three together in one. That's what they're saying. So basically from the beginning of their Bible, their book, they completely collapsed the whole theory, the pillar of it. So things like this can go on. And I started doubting about the Christian, and it's not a truthful one. And Muslim, Catholic share same idea. So I thought, forget about it too. As for Muslim, honestly, I don't know much about Muslim, but if something just came around for 800 years, and much later than Chumash, then there's nothing to it. So I didn't even waste my time on it, especially at 911, I was converting. I said, if these people taking pleasure of killing people, right, and think this is the right thing to do by killing others and justify all of that, if this is God's chosen people, I would rather not believe in such a God, like altogether. So I said, okay, if Judaism is called the mother of all religions, that's something I'm going to stick up to. So then I got into it.
So beautiful. So how did you connect to Judaism? How did you connect to the Jewish community?
And it was hard, I would have to say. In the beginning, so I worked in the Chinese radio station in New York. And across the street of where the radio station located, there was a conservative Jewish synagogue. beautiful, beautiful building, and with Magen David and colored glass windows. So I didn't know better. I just know at that time, by talking to Reform and conservative Jews, not religious Jews, no religious Jews talked to me yet at that time. They said, oh, you have different Jews. You have conservative, Reform, and Orthodox. No, don't be the Orthodox Jew. The Orthodox Jew, they're crazy because they don't drive, they don't have electricity, and they told me all of that, right? So I already know. But I said, but why people keep all of that? Oh, because they are crazy. They think this is the oldest one coming down, coming from God. But today, everything has changed. But they didn't know. I heard it differently. That if it's coming from God, then that shouldn't be changed. That's the one I'm going to go. So when I went to this conservative shul, the rabbi received me very warmly. He made a phone calls to in Manhattan, some Jewish schools, and said, "Oh, don't worry, we'll take care of you." And blah blah blah, did a lot of things. So then I thought it was something was not making sense. It just doesn't add up. So when before I left him, I said, "Do you keep kosher? Do you keep Shabbos?" He said, "Of course I do. I am a Jew." Then he said, "But we drive to synagogue on Friday." So I know some Jews maybe say this is not good, but this is part of our observance. I said, "Thank you very much and goodbye." And I never went back. I thought that was not for me. So because it's too modern, it was not Orthodox. But I had no way of finding the right one, except when I take a bus in Flushing, downtown Flushing. I pass a building. I often see Jewish man with a black hat, black coat, and the woman dressed like a long skirts and things like that. So I assume that's a synagogue, right? So I took the bus. I went there, and so then there was two boys came out, asked me, "Who are you looking for?" Right? I said, "Can I talk to the rabbi?" He said, "Wait," and I went back inside. Came back to me, said, "The rabbi is not here right now." So I said, "Can I have the rabbi's phone number?" They said, "No, the rabbi does not have a phone number." So I understood they're trying to push me out. That I already know, like Orthodox Jewish conversion, they don't really encourage you, right? They might push you out. So I thought it was their way of saying no. I said, "Okay, I'll come back at a different time." And before I left, there were two men came in, and now the first two was like teenagers, but these two are grown-ups. So they asked these two boys, I think it's a little bit arrogantly, they said, "What does she want?" I heard, so I answered, "I'm interested in Judaism." They literally want like, ha, 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 like scoffed at me. Like it broke all my confidence and all the courage that I gathered, because I was still speaking a broken English. It wasn't easy. I was a foreigner. Only for love of Judaism, I was there. Otherwise, I'll go back home and continue enjoying my life. So I came out in tears and saying, "This is too much, right? This is too much. I should give up." But then there's a second thought. Is that you want to convert to Judaism. There's an easy way, but you don't want it because it wasn't the truthful one. Now, this is something that is real, but they don't want you. So what are you going to do? I said, maybe it's a test. It's a test from Hashem. So let me try one more time. And then Hashem put this wonderful idea in my head. So I took this tape recorder from the radio station and went on Main Street. I just randomly interviewed some, I thought it was religious Jewish woman. And so after some questions, they asked me, "You Chinese, right?" And yeah. "Why are you interested in these questions?" I said, "To be honest with you, I want to convert, but I don't have any way. I don't know who I should be contact with. I have no idea. Could you help me?" So this woman came back with a phone number. "Call this rabbi. I don't know if it's the right number, but call, see what you find out." That was a Rabbi Fund from Brooklyn, and which is also he's in charge of Orthodox conversion. And I called him. I made an appointment. I talked to him, And he gave me, he said, I'm going to give you 30 minutes. We talked over an hour. And he said, sounds like you start a lot. Where do you live? I said, I live in Queens. So then don't come to me. Go to my friend who's in Queens. So he introduced me to the rabbi who converted me, Rabbi Peretz Stenberg, who was the chairman of Orthodox conversion. From that time on, I started my journey. Before that, by the way, before I even started looking for a rabbi, when I started thinking about the Judaism I want to convert, because I naturally was yearning, pursuing for Hashem's existence. Once I determined I want to do, I said, let me try if I can keep kosher. So I stopped eating pork right away. Then I stopped eating any fleshy food just to become vegetarian. So this way I know at least it's not something, I lost you. Rabbi Levin, I lost you.
Am I here? You don't hear me?
Oh, something else popped up. So yeah, so I basically become vegetarian. So I thought, okay, this is not easy. And imagine that I was working in a Chinese radio station with downtown flashing, was full of Chinese, all restaurants, every day, everywhere you smell it, all the supermarket. The food is easy and delicious, supposedly. I had to refuse all of that, become vegetarian. And difficult, doesn't taste good. Anyway, so I thought, okay, I could do it. Keeping kosher, I could do it. Now, the next step, I lost you again, Rabbi Levin.
No, I'm here. I just muted somebody. There was somebody.
Okay. So the next one, I said, can I keep kosher? Can I keep Shabbos? I didn't fully understand what Shabbos is about, but I know I was not supposed to touch electricity. I was not supposed to cook. So I shared an apartment with an old lady. So during Shabbat, I didn't go out. I didn't eat anything hot, just cold food. And the only thing I did was flush the toilet. I thought that should be okay. So I did this for several weeks. I said, that is also difficult, but I can do it. As I can imagine myself doing this for the rest of my life. So after all of this, I said, now I'm ready. But mentally I was ready, physically I was ready. I started looking for a rabbi. Then Hashem led me to the right rabbi.
Was there a point at which you felt in your heart, like was there a transition at some point where you feel, yes, this is right? Or was it just all along, as you came to learning more Torah and being more involved, was it just something that you, along the journey, you knew you'd found the right thing the whole time, once you found this rabbi? Or was there a transition point, like where you weren't sure and then something happened to change that?
I would say in the beginning, it was more intellectual thinking process to convert. And as I got involved, it becomes more and more emotional. Mm-hmm. I don't know if this makes sense to you. So the logical thinking was, if God does exist, right? Let's say, assuming that God does exist, and Jewish people are his chosen people, that means this is the correct way of living, the best way of living. So if I know there's something better, why don't I become part of it? That's just a natural desire, right? So how do I become part of that? And I start looking for ways to do that. So let's say, but there is a possibility that God does not exist at that point. So the logical thinking was, if God does not exist, then I converted to Judaism. I can't eat whatever I want to eat. I cannot do whatever I want to do. As life becomes a lot more difficult and maybe meaningless, whatever. People might laugh at me. So you're crazy. But life is just harder. In the end of the day, by the day I die, and I go to the heaven, and people said, "Oh, you were so stupid. There was no such a thing. What did I lose? Just a harder life. I can handle it." But what if God does exist, right? And I didn't do it. I would miss the biggest chance forever. And then, yes, people might argue, "Well, you're not Jewish. You don't have to do all of this. You're not going to be judged," and so on and so. But I'm thinking, and Hashem is going to ask me, why didn't you convert? So I would say, oh, because I'm not Jewish, I am not obligated, I don't have to convert. He said, I know, I'm not going to judge you. However, you knew the truth. Why didn't you? What I would say, I got nothing to say. So that would be stupid of me. So intellectually, I chose this way, so that it's clearly is the right path, right? As I learned, the more I learned about the Judaism, the more I was blown away. The wisdom that's within it, it's just unbelievable. And in my mind, it became clear. I see things through. I make life decisions and more wisely, I would say. Like I deal with people right away. I can read these people like 1 to 3. And also English, I was learning English. In a short time, 7 months of time, I was able to speak in the English crowd. I mean, in English, right? I learned Hebrew in 3 months. I still don't speak English. I learned English and really? I was davening all in Hebrew in 3 months. And all of this is a blessing from Hashem. Clearly, he guided me for that.
That's beautiful. There's a short time. We could go on talking for hours, and I'd love to, but we have a short time left. So I want to just ask you a couple more questions. First of all, how did you meet your husband? You met your husband after you converted, after you were already Jewish, right. And he's a Hasidic guy in Palo Alto. How did you meet? Well,
it's through online, believe it or not. There was a Jewish, Frum Jews dating website. It's called a Frumster. At that time, I don't know about today. At that time, it's Frum. So you basically put your requirement, what kind of husband you're looking for, and what's your basic conditions, like your age, right, your background and everything. So this is how we met each other online. He dated someone, didn't work out, and that person told him to put his information on Frumster. And after my rabbi and everybody, all matchmaking, tried to match someone with me, and all failed because I think I'm normal. I was normal. Most people I dated, Jewish people, like Frum people, get married very early, and I wasn't young, and so basically it's also leftovers from different environment, like mentally, financially, physically, whatever. There's a problem with them. So usually I'm the one who says no, but most of them, I think they're not Frum enough for me. And then one of my hosts I think it was Sukkot, okay, and the host's sister, she was holding a baby. She said, why your information from Frumster? Because look at my baby. I met my husband through that website. That was quite encouraging. So I did that. But because I think I'm Frumer than most people on that site, I did not really put my picture over there. I did put one, but you cannot recognize anything. It was like very fuzzy. So you use my husband's words. He said you can't tell if he says someone who is from Africa. it could be anyone. And there was no feature or anything. Anyway, so through only a few days we connected. Then my rabbi heard from my Hebrew teacher. He knew that I had my information. He told her to tell me I should take it off, because he said online people can lie about their things. So I took off. However, Hashem made the match. Once it's connected. Even only a few days, it worked. So that's what happened.
Very nice. And then you came here, and thank God you have 3 wonderful children. And you developed a practice now as a quite recognized medical practitioner. You're a doctor, and I understand that now in the current situation with you've been sending herbs to people all over the country to help them with their people who've been affected with the virus, with COVID-19, and you've been helping a lot of people with your practice. So you're doing Chinese medicine, you're in the Jewish community. Do you want to talk a little bit about, do you feel like you're mixing 2 cultures, bringing them together? You want to talk a little bit about that?
Okay, so my business basically opens to all, right? However, interestingly, for some reason, it does attract a lot of Jewish people. Most of the time, I don't even know they are Jewish until much later. They mention about, oh, you have mezuzah. How do you know? Oh, I'm Jewish, right? So things like that, like most people are not from the community. Actually, not many people I could count on my fingers, on my one hand. Okay, so I figured I have a role in this. Nothing happens randomly, and I have a practice. My goal. This is what can I tell? Can I say that? Like my end goal is I'll become the best Chinese doctor. So maybe one day I'm going to help Mashiach.
Oh, wow.
I'm going to help Mashiach. I can treat Netanyahu, right? So in the U.S. is the best platform for me to study more and more and together to suck in, expunge with all knowledge that's needed. When I'm ready, I'm going to do Aliyah. I'm going to only serve the Jewish people. That's my goal. That's what I'm thinking. So since having that in mind, when I see Jewish people, of course I'm going to talk to them very naturally during the treatment, doing whatever. I slowly give them some taste and knowledge of Judaism. So often I have people, Jews or non-Jews alike, they will tell me, interesting. I got my best Jewish education through a Chinese.
That's really wonderful. That's really wonderful, actually. You know, Judaism is as a group, we have so much richness coming from all the different backgrounds and people joining and people becoming part of the Jewish community. And it's beautiful. I want to open up to invite people to ask questions. I just want one more question. We've all heard, I think probably everybody's heard about your experience in Wuhan, where you were just there recently visiting the family. So I don't want to talk about that whole event because, you know, we've heard about it, and it was kind of a striking event where Chabad helped you get out and everything. But did you feel as a Jew, was it the situation any different being there as a Jew in Wuhan, as a Jew with your Jewish background now? Did you feel that way when you came there? And did you feel that way through this event, to this episode of having to get out and not having food there and all that? Can you address that question as a Jew in Wuhan now recently? Can you talk a little bit about that experience?
Yes. So I went there for a reason. My mom wasn't feeling well, not for coronavirus, Baruch Hashem, but for something else. So it was long due visit. I only went there in January, beginning of January, because one of my daughter's winter break was during that time. So I waited and took her there. So of course we spent Shabbat there alone at home, and there was no synagogue, no Jews whatsoever. It was completely isolated. We did what we're supposed to do, keep kosher, even though it's extremely difficult. We did it. I thought that was maybe that's the purpose, because I'm saying the bracha with a great kavana, maybe it would redeem whatever. Who knows, right? But it turned out maybe that's not just it. And when the coronavirus situation becomes more clear, like more and more people are infected, things become somewhat dangerous. Okay, the danger is not really what it seems, because on the outside it still looks calm, but I felt it. I felt the great danger, and felt we might die there. Okay, my daughter and I, not immediately, but we might die of starvation without kosher food, maybe out of chaos. And that I was fearful for our lives. So the minute I think as a Jew in that situation, that's when you called me. Okay, so I felt this deep connection. I was worried, but not so. I wasn't panicking. But remember when you called me, I cried the first second. That was uncontrollable. I wasn't going to cry. I didn't know I was going to cry. Just same as the first time I went to a shul before I met my rabbi. That's a different story, right? So the connection with the rabbi who converted me, and he said, okay, come to see me this day. But before you come, would you want to hang out with this girl? who is also converting. So I called that girl. She said, "Oh, I'm going to the synagogue this Shabbat. Would you like to meet there?" I said, "Okay." So I was there first. I went to the synagogue, which is different synagogue than the rabbi who converted me. I went there. I think it was the chazan was davening in Hallel, and I didn't know what it was. And this musical voice somehow got to me. I started pouring out tears. I wasn't prepared for that. It was out of my control. Just keep on. I couldn't even stop it for a long time. So when I see you, similar things happened. I just started crying, and I didn't know what's going on with me. And Chaya got scared. She said, "Mommy, what's going on?" I've never showed any signs of being scared or anything, and the whole time when you called me, I just started crying. So I think this connection, even though sometimes we don't physically see as a Jew, between Jew and a Jew, between Jew and God, we don't see it, but it's there clearly. When a Jew, you live as a Jew, you think like a Jew, you behave like a Jew, then salvation is there.
Thank you. I'm going to ask if anyone has one. We have time for one or two questions. If you'd like to type it into the chat, that would be a good idea. And we'll see if we can take a couple of questions. I want to say that I think I've heard the story, at least when you first came to town, you told us the story a little bit, and I think it's a remarkable story, and your journey is remarkable. It's very impressive, and where you've come here, and you're a very respected doctor now, and helping so many people. And I have to say that the story is very, very inspiring, and I want to thank you very much for sharing it with us.
Thank you. I'm very grateful. Thank Baruch Hashem. Thank God.
How did your family react to your converting?
Yeah, that's a question people ask me the most. They generally trust my decisions in my life. They thought I did the right thing before they saw me, before they came to my house. But when the first time they visited me, before they came, I told them, so no food comes to my house. So don't bring any food. No food from China, no food from the US, just no food, right? We have very strict restriction on food. So they're okay. So they came in with a jar of something. I said, I told you no food. My mother, I told you no food. My mother said, I didn't bring this from the airplane. So I said, okay, throw it away. He said, that's waste. I said, okay, fine. Why don't you go to the backyard and eat it over there and throw it in the trash? So, okay. Then she went. He came back with my spoon. So she ate that yogurt with my spoon. So I know I could categorize the spoon, but I want to make a point. So I said, okay, look, this is going to go to the trash. So I threw it in the garbage can. So my mother said, why? Because you touched the food that's not allowed in this house. So I know it's harsh at that time. My mother, emotionally, she was hurt. Maybe she didn't say, but I want to make a very strong standpoint. So they got it. So from that time on, there was no food whatsoever. And then they cannot touch this. They cannot turn on the stove. They cannot. So all the things together, after a few days, they couldn't handle it anymore. So they didn't say, but from the facial expression, I know they think I'm crazy. I'm somewhat crazy. And I have chosen some extreme religion. And I limited myself. So I couldn't enjoy myself much. And so after a few times they came visiting me, I could feel that biologically we are still parents and daughter, but deep down they think I'm gone. I was gone. This daughter just like consider they never raised this child, although they still love me. I love them. They love me. So the connection becomes faded. I would say they are a lot closer to my brother's family than my family. And also because they couldn't really communicate with my kids. They don't speak English. And I failed teaching my kids Chinese. And I'm really sorry about that. But they learn Hebrew at school. And, Jewish life is not easy. I didn't have the time. I didn't remember to speak to them in Chinese because common language is English, and then we davening in Hebrew. So really, there wasn't much I could.
Yes, that would be a lot. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
So, we're out of time. There are a few more questions, but I'm afraid we're out of time. Anyone who would like to ask questions directly to Esther, you can email me either at office@chabadgsb.com or yourfavoriterabbi@gmail.com. Just email and we'll get you the answers directly from Esther. I want to thank you so much for this time with us and sharing your story. It's a very, very touching and emotional story. And thank you very much. And I wish you a lot of success in the rest of your life with your family.
Thank you. Before we hang up, one thing I want to clarify, I don't want people have wrong ideas about that shul who refused me when I'm looking for the rabbi. That later on, I find out that was a yeshiva for boys. So of course they're going to kick me out. So don't feel bad for that. They did what they had to do, but it was just not easy for me at that time.
Wonderful. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. We hope to see you soon on more programs. Thank you.